Hi everyone, I am Kevin Wynn. I am a assistant professor of STEM education here in the Hutchins School. And here with me is...
Hi everyone, I'm Wendy Ostroff and I'm associate professor of cognitive and developmental science here in Hutchins. And we're here to tell you about our new ePortfolio that we're going to be using for assessment this year. So you've probably received from your professors or seminar facilitators a handout about the ePortfolio, and we're just going to take this time to go through that handout a little bit with you now and make sure that you have everything you need to get started on the ePortfolio process. So first, the handout that we're going to look at first is creating and curating your Hutchins ePortfolio.
Okay.
And just to give you a little background and a little context, for many years in Hutchins, we've been using an archival model of the portfolio, and that was that binder where you collected every single paper that you did in Hutchins for years and then reviewed them with your professor at some point in the semester and then at the end in our senior synthesis class. We've decided to change from an archival model into a curated model of the portfolio. And at least for right now, while we're distance learning, we're going to be doing that electronically and hopefully continue with an ePortfolio because there's lots of benefits to using a curated ePortfolio. And an ePortfolio is really just a collection of everything you've learned, everything you've discovered, your progress in the major, everything you've achieved. And so it's going to showcase you as a student. It's not going to go through every assignment you've done. Instead, just like a museum curator, you're going to collect the little artifacts and pieces of information that show your learning, show the evidence of your learning across time, and you're going to highlight those and in a way tell a story. So this quote on the handout really encapsulates everything that we're talking about, that making and sharing your ePortfolio with others is essentially telling a story. It's the story of your learning journey. And we're going to use that ePortfolio in a variety of ways in Hutchins. Some of your professors are going to use that in their individual classes to see how you've met their learning outcomes. You can also use it with advisors and mentors to document how you've made progress in the major. In Hutchins Lower Division, we're going to use it to look at some of the learning outcomes in the general education program in Hutchins. We're going to look at how you've grown in the content areas for general education, and we're also going to look at how you've grown in process, so how you've grown as a learner. And that's going to happen across many different courses while you're here. And when you get to the end of your Hutchins major, you're going to look at your ePortfolio with perhaps a different lens and looking at your whole major and how you've grown and learned as a person throughout that whole time. You may have a question about access. Who's going to see your ePortfolio? In a way, the ePortfolio is like a website that has links to all of the different things that you've chosen to represent your learning. And so you may wonder who's going to have access to that. Well, it's yours. It's all yours. You're going to create it yourself. You're going to control the formatting and you're going to control all the content. You're going to be asked to share this with your professors at different times and different courses in your time here, and especially at key moments like in the mid-semester evaluations or in your final senior synthesis. You may be asked to share it with the entire community, but the whole time you will control the content. So if any kind of content is personal or something that you prefer to keep private or keep between just your professor and you can certainly do that. When you make a portfolio to share, when you do a version to share with a broader community, you may choose to take out certain artifacts that you don't feel you want to share with the broader world. And likewise, when you go into the world after you graduate or when you're looking for jobs or internships or applying to graduate school, all these kinds of things, you may choose to curate it a little differently for a broader public and to use it for that purpose.
All right, and then I'm just going to talk a little bit about, I guess, the more practical side of the portfolio for grading purposes. I want to be really clear that it's ultimately a digital artifact for you. It's a website that you might show to an employer or to show to future educators that, hey, these are the skills and this is me, kind of almost like a digital resume. And so it's never going to be completely done, and it's really up to you to take into your own space. That said, though, in terms of your undergrad experience, we will be assessing it in lower division and in 402, and then other courses up to the instructor. So we'll have built-in check marks to help you kind of curate and create this digital platform of yourself. And so I think a big question is, what do these look like? And for those of you that may have never done this before, there's a lot of examples on the internet just from searching around. I made 2 examples just to kind of show you the different tools that are out there. One platform is called Portfolium. This is actually paid for by the university, and it's university supported. And it gives you a very, I guess I would call the most Facebook looking thing ever. It's very much a Facebook formats. You can, give your profile, have a little, like, I would almost call this a Facebook banner, an avatar, an overview of yourself, and then some intros of yourself, introductions of yourself. And so it actually ends up looking more like a resume Facebook profile-ish type. Let me zoom out here. But the biggest thing with Portfolium is that it really emphasizes these skills. And so to employers, to educators, you can kind of show what the different skills you've been working on. And these are all tied to certain artifacts you upload within the portfolio section. And so here I just gave like 2 examples of, here's like a really major assignment I did and how it might be linked to certain skills and outcomes that I might need to prove for a class or for a future employer. So that one's, I think, pretty straightforward. I think it's probably one of the easier ones. If you're looking for something easy and you can use kind of right off the bat. If you're looking for something a little deeper, the second example I uploaded was a Google site. Google Sites are available free through your Gmail account or through your Sonoma State Gmail account. And they're much more customizable. Here I have an intro page with a really big, personal banner of myself, a little intro here. I made a little about me page, kind of documenting where I'm coming from and my resumes. Anything could go there. But I really push deeper here in that, whereas Portfolium has skills you could list of like skills and themes that you've been working on, here you can create your own little pages or sub pages for these skills and themes. And so this is actually not fake. I actually do strongly believe in equity and social justice in my own work, but I didn't give like actual examples. But I did want to show, like, here's a Google Doc I did for my own reading of the book and how it looks in Google Sites. And so say you have a really amazing essay from your Hutchins career and you want to say, like, look, this connects really strongly to my goals of equity, and here's this awesome paper that I can prove it to you. And I might like put like 3 or 4 papers in here. Or another one, my background is actually in science, engineering, education. And I care a lot about social cultural theory, and say I made a video of it, and here I embedded a YouTube link that embeds really well. Or I did a presentation for a class. Here's an actual clickable Google slide that's embedded to show an example. So there's a lot of, personally, I really like Google Sites for it because I do a lot of stuff in Google Drive and Google Docs already. So it embeds it really well. But it could be a little bit more overwhelming than, say, Portfolium, which is, you literally have 2 pages. Your portfolio, where you upload stuff, like, say, a paper, and then your main profile page. But those are just 2 examples. There's even more examples from other students, even within the Cal State system, but also nationwide. And so those are just some 2 ways to start thinking about it. Wendy, you sound like you want to say something.
I just wanted to add, Kevin, to your example on Google Sites, something really beautiful about that. is those themes and those threads that you created to represent your journey through your education, the equity and social justice and the sociocultural theories. And that's something that all of you Hutchins students can do. So you don't have to just link onto the learning outcomes that we've put out for a particular course or for the Hutchins major, which you're going to see in a second in our rubric. But instead, you can look at what themes pop for you when you look at your own education and you realize, I do see a thread. I see something between my 101 class and my 202 class. These are very different topics, but it looks like I've always been kind of concerned with feminism, or it looks like I've always been kind of concerned with sociocultural realities, or it looks like I've always been kind of concerned with this or that. So you can let themes emerge when you look at your work and you choose your artifacts for your portfolio. And one other thing I want to mention is Kevin has some beautiful examples of maybe his best work, his artifacts that in this example, but you may choose examples that aren't necessarily your most stellar work. You may look at kind of a pre-post, like here's my first response paper of the semester, and here's my last, and look at how much I've grown in that short time. Or look at, here's the thesis from a first essay I wrote at the beginning of my academic career, and now at the end of 2 years, here's another essay I wrote, and I just want to show how much stronger the thesis has developed. So it's not just about showing how amazing you are, although it is about telling that story, but you also want to show your growth and how you've changed and what things have happened for you in your experience.
Yeah, I think that's really is a big point of this portfolio is showing your narrative, and you're in control of that narrative. And so the next part now is, like I've said, we also want it to be useful to you, but we also have to make it useful to the university and how we're assessing your learning. And so we do have certain Hutchins specific outcomes in this rubric we've created together. And so I would definitely familiarize yourself with this rubric. Your Hutchins instructor will be grading your portfolio, whether it's throughout checkouts, check marks, or check-ins throughout the semester or at the very end of the semester. And they're on some pretty, I'd say, learning outcomes that we definitely hit in Hutchins, whether it's for your entire portfolio where you're picking artifacts to put in and curate, or whether you're reflecting on the entire portfolio experience, to specific artifacts within your portfolio and how they have to demonstrate, how you draw on different disciplines or how you show critical thinking skills. And then, of course, your creativity and communication. Wendy, is there anything else you think on the rubric we should talk about?
Yeah, I just want to say that it's meant to be a framework. It's not meant to be overwhelming, to say, I have to do, this has to be exactly this. It's just meant to give you a sense of what we have in mind for how you can do a really good job of representing your learning. So if you are looking at these ideas like critical thinking or interdisciplinarity, you may want to come up with some artifacts that represent each of these. Probably more than one. Probably you'll have more than one example of creativity, for instance. It won't necessarily just be an art project that represents creativity. It could be a creative writing piece. It could be a response paper where you wrote a poem, or it could be, creative thinking within a more expository paper that you wrote, but you just had some really insightful creative thoughts. So we want to let you open this up and let you make it your own. And so the rubric isn't meant to be confining. The rubric is really meant to let you know how we're thinking about this and what kinds of artifacts we're looking for and in what ways we want you to reflect and be purposeful about those artifacts.
Yeah, I think that's perfect. And I think it's just being fair and explicit about how we're talking about this. So now that you've seen the rubrics and some examples, a big part of creating this portfolio is deciding what artifacts go into this. And I can tell you from being in Hutchins, you already have a ton. And if you're just starting, you will make some really amazing work. So be thinking about that as you're going through your courses this semester. And then as you saw earlier, I showed you just two platforms. Portfolium, which if you need access to this, it's through your login.sonoma.edu webpage. Or you could go to the Google Sites route, which is, I think you just type sites.google.com and you can get access to making one. There's also other platforms that you may be more familiar with. Like if you were ever a blogger in high school, WordPress, super popular. If you were ever into web design, Adobe Dreamweaver, maybe a skill you already know or you may want to know. But for those of you who don't want such a website tech approach, you could go as easy as making Google Slides and having Google Slides for artifacts and themes that you want to show us. Or I know in Women and Gender Studies, they do their final portfolio with Adobe PDFs, and they make PDFs for certain works and linking them together in a PDF binder. And so there's a lot of different ways you can tackle this. And I think one of my goals for you is to find a format that suits you best, and also a piece of software that you want to learn. Say you really want to get into digital media after this, maybe go all the way up to Adobe Dreamweaver so you can say like, hey, I can make websites. Or, I feel much more comfortable doing it in a slide format. That's totally okay.
It's really important also to feel that you're not trapped in one medium. If you decide to use Portfolium because you think it's going to be the simplest approach for you at first, but then you get inspired later to move into making more of a website, that's totally fine. You can kind of create and recreate your ePortfolio. It's also wonderful to work together with your friends and colleagues in Hutchins, teach each other, do online tutorials, help each other figure this out, and help each other with your formatting. And these are kinds of things that we can learn with each other in our seminar groups and with our friends.
Yeah, I will say, as you're still an undergrad, this is probably the cheapest subscription you'll have to Adobe suite of tools and tutorials. So if that's something you want to learn for your digital content creation, whether it's Dreamweaver or Photoshop or even InDesign, this is a really good time to get access for really cheap. And so we lean on each other. So as you saw in the examples, there is a homepage. I think it's going to be the landing page that everybody will see when they click on you. So be purposeful about how you're representing yourself. I didn't do a good job because I was making like a really quick example, but I would be thoughtful about that. And then I think most importantly, if you go the more in-depth route, say a Google site or a website, think a lot about the different subpages and themes and narratives that you're linking to present yourself and your work. I think that's really the neatest way to do it. In Portfolium, it's not as straightforward. You can do it through skills. If you're doing, say, Google Slides, you could have like a major category for a certain section of your presentation. But be thinking about these narratives that you want to present yourself in.
And then the final step to making your ePortfolio is that reflection piece. So you're going to be selecting artifacts that represent you, but then you're going to do a little connecting of the dots to say, how do these artifacts really show your learning? And that's when you get into, we put in the handout that you want to answer the three questions: what is this artifact? So what? Why is that artifact important? And now what? And how is this going to connect to weave together a larger narrative of who you are? So very similar to the old archival portfolio where you just save everything. The reflection piece is really where it starts to make sense to say, here's not just a collection of things that represent me, but here's how they represent me, and here's how they represent what I've come to know and how I've grown as a thinker and an intellectual.
That's great. And then, as we keep saying, you're never done. We'll have certain check-ins throughout your undergrad experience, but it's an evolving story of what is important to you. So be thinking about this as we're starting this semester.
And most of all, I think enjoy this process. because this is a chance you really get to have some kind of meta level awareness of yourself and to say, what is my education all about? And you can really be purposeful about that as you begin to think of yourself in that way. Think of yourself as a learner and think about maximizing your experiences at growing as a person. So it should be an enjoyable process. It should be a process of weaving together something that you're fascinated with, that you're interested in, that you want to keep documenting and keep undertaking. Hopefully it's a joyful experience for you and not something that you just have to get done.
Yeah. I think that sounds like that's everything, Wendy. Is there anything else we should talk about?
I think that's it. I think we just want to let you know that this is new for all of us, that we're just starting this in Hutchins. So we're open to lots of questions and lots of revisions. So send your questions our way as they come up, or ask your professors or contact us. We are happy to help you along this path and kind of get you started and point you in the direction of getting the information you need. Anything else, Kevin?
I think that's it. All right. Have a great start to the semester, everyone, and hopefully we can see you, whether virtually or in person, in the near future.